Are here to talk some punk rock, some music, comics,
punk culture, DIY shit, anything we want to talk about.
That's what fascinates me. Give me everything, absolutely everything.
I find that music and comics have always been intertwined.
Muckspout.
Chicks dig it. Don't worry.
Hello and welcome back to Muckspout. This is episode 840 or something. I don't know. We never keep track. Unfortunately, Eric isn't with us today. He's at C2E2, which is like a huge comic convention. And he's kicking ass with our ghost co-host, Chuck Pino, who occasionally shows up. So they're selling comics and, being generally awesome people. So today it'll be John and I. Welcome back, John.
Howdy. Nice to be back.
And we're going to be talking with Imogen, who's a friend of mine. Hi. We met at a punk show last spring, I think it was.
Definitely, like about a year ago now.
Yeah. Yeah. And that was a show for Bitch Fest, which is an all-female music festival that gets put on by an organization called Save Toronto Music Venues here in the city. I was filming and you were filming, and we kind of just we're like, oh hey, we're doing the same things. Let me know if I'm in your way, and then we struck up a conversation. And why don't you tell everybody a little bit about yourself?
Yeah. So my name's Imogen, like Ben said. I do music concert photography in Toronto. And with a little bit of a dive into other parts of the arts as well. A lot of my background, so to speak, is in graphic design and illustration, which has sort of led me into the realm of filmmaking as well with the digital media. I have an interest in lyric videos and animation, and I just want to be in all parts of the band scene, that sort of visual media for music and everything. As well as storytelling. I think I'll always have a route back into creating characters and designing a brand around something entirely fictional. I'm super excited to be here and talking about this stuff and talking about my art and what I do for it.
So you're an illustrator as well. So, the other thing that we talk about a lot is comic books. So is there a comic connection in your life, or is it kind of just been ships passing in the night?
I have a lot of interest in I started off with an interest in manga, and I think a lot of people have that interest in Scott Pilgrim, that kind of the very popular sort of graphic novel vibe. But Full Metal Alchemist is a huge influence on me as far as a manga, and I love visual storytelling in that way. I think one of the biggest connections is with film and comics, because everything's done in a frame, and it's all about trying to figure out the pacing of things. And I've always kind of thought about that connection in an interesting way. I don't know if you ever studied comics or read Scott McCloud's comic book thing. He kind of talks about the pacing and how it's just an abstraction of what everything is. I'm sure that comes up quite a bit with comics, but but filmmaking is really just the same thing, and it's how much you want to abstract reality. I haven't really done a lot of illustrative work recently, but it's always there. Drawing is always a peaceful place for me, in character design. Everything.
Yeah, I remember seeing 300, which I think was the first Zack Snyder film, and the first Zack Snyder comic film, I should say. And I've always been a huge Frank Miller fan, and I ended up seeing it in IMAX, and I have this vivid memory of sitting and watching the first fight scene when they're running across and the Persians are coming at them, and it would slow down as the spear went through the guy, and then it would speed back up again, and the guy would jump over top of the other dude. And I remember right after I finished watching the movie, I was like, I have to check, because that felt too close for me. So I ran to the nearest chapters and found the 300 graphic novel on the shelf and flipped open to that part, and it was frame for frame identical And I remember thinking like, this is the beginning of a new kind of stage for comic-based movies. Now Marvel has kind of changed the game a fair amount, but that truth to the original material like really resonated with me, and I've seen a lot of really cool shit since then. But uh, in terms of filmmaking, what are your influences and your interests?
I think I've already mentioned it a little bit. Definitely Scott Pilgrim, like Edgar Wright.
Right.
Love Edgar Wright's work. Like always following it. I think Baby Driver was one of the films that I saw, and I was like, I want to make films like this.
Yeah.
And like seeing something like that that's like so close to like a music video in a narrative sense, amazing, amazing. And the whole way it was made with like the music first, and then they brought in, like then he figured out the story kind of based off of the music. So cool, love it.
Right.
Yeah, and he has such a marriage of music and film. Edgar Wright just is an incredible force for marrying those two things. And yeah, I think he did Last Night in Soho as well, which was also very similarly visually stunning and just had that very vibrant music background to it. It's yeah, people that can bring those two pieces together are just amazing to me. So yeah, that's wonderful.
Yeah. Definitely, like, and then like as far as like subject matter goes and stuff, like Greta Gerwig, like I love Lady Bird. I think every film student has like that little bit of a thing for Lady Bird, but it's just such a touching story, and I would love to see sort of both like the drama as well as the sort of pizzazz and like such music driven stuff like melded together in a story. I don't think we've had anything like that since like a John Hughes film, so I'd love to explore into that.
That's very true. Yeah, it's been a long time since there was a movie that touched your heart and also had a killer soundtrack, like Breakfast Club, you know, that kind of thing. Like it's I don't know why that changed. What do you think happened? Do you think it was like music rights became difficult to access?
True. That's
Like
probably a big part of it.
We were actually just discussing this before you came on. Is like some of the older films, like we were talking about the old Christian Slater film, Pump Up the Volume, where there's just so many great songs that people brought into film back in the day. But now if you rebroadcast something, you have to strip a lot of that out. You can't like show it in the rebroadcast. And sometimes either it's dumbed down and there's no music, or trying to replace it with something that has that same vibe to it for cheaper. And I think a lot of people got scared off of that. So that's just a guess. I'm not an expert, but that seems to be where people went, because things like Return of the Living Dead and Repo Man, they just had an incredible punk soundtrack to them. But then you go watch it on TV and it's just like, I don't know half of this music anymore. So yeah, people definitely got scared away a little, I think.
Yeah. Do you know the movie Pump Up the Volume?
I have not seen it. No.
Oh, I think you would genuinely love it. It's about a high school kid who moonlights as a pirate radio DJ, and he has like a ham radio broadcaster in his basement, and he just plays all the music that they won't play on the radio, and kind of like incites a little bit of a teenage rebellion in his town, to the point where I think it's the principal of the school starts like getting involved with the police and trying to hunt down who this secret pirate radio broadcaster is, because he like alters his voice and stuff, and like then there's this bit of a cat and mouse thing where he's like going to school, and it's sort of like an alter ego where he's going to school and everybody's talking about him, but no one knows it's him. It's an amazing movie. I love it.
That sounds so fun. I'm definitely gonna give it a watch. Yeah, right up my alley. I was wondering if it's something about like people don't take as much risk with music as they used to. Like how many songs became famous from films, but now it's very much like people cling on to the songs that they want, kind of thing.
Interesting. Yeah, it's a bit of a chicken or egg thing, right? Like, you know, this is something that you and I have talked about at shows a fair amount, is like the collaborative aspect of the scene, you know, with a capital S, how like it's a bunch of different parts kind of coming together, and we tend to remember the bands, but there's so many other things that get involved in that, think about all the albums that you weren't into music, but you went to the record store, or you were just scrolling through and you're like, oh my God, that album cover's so sick.
Yep.
And you turn it on, and when the album cover matches the vibe of the music, it's like it hits you special, and that's part of the scene, and the way we met was filming live shows. So I was hoping to talk to you about, you have a cinema background, and that's what you're in school for now, and you're making music videos now, but like blocking out a narrative is very different than taking photos of a live, like, organic event. So like, what are the pros and cons of each, would you say?
Yeah, I think like what I really like about music photography is like you go in and you're kind of a little bit unprepared. You can prepare. You can like look up this. You can listen to the music. You can like try and figure out what the vibe's gonna be, like, as much as you can. But like, no matter what, you're never gonna, like, it's pure luck if you're in the right place at the right time to get that photo. For the most part.
Mm-hmm.
And like that kind of reaction is so much fun, and having to sort of pure improvisation is like what makes it enjoyable. And then on the other hand, film is somewhere that you're like 100% trying to plan. Like, I'm currently in the editing process of my first music video, and I'm realizing, oh, we should have gotten a close up of the bass at this one very specific part of the song, because that would have just emphasized everything in the music video so much better. But it's like, those are the kind of things that I'm only learning through experience, and then like redoing it over again, and like looking at it in hindsight, it's so much easier to think, oh my God, I should have planned for that. Whereas film really requires that super intensive planning. Both of them definitely have their like pros and cons. So like neither one is like 100% better. But I also think like the documenting of an experience, of like an energy, is what draws me to both. And like trying to sort of match a vibe. I don't know. I was in a conversation yesterday with a director, and I was saying how I love doing photography because I'm capturing a vibe, and I love making and directing because I'm creating the vibe. And so I like being on both ends of that spectrum, and like trying to see how they can kind of play into each other and what can come from both. Definitely.
So how do you approach capturing as opposed to creating the vibe? Like, what is the difference in your mentality when you're walking in?
Both, I will say, have a lot of anxiety. Both are very scary. But I definitely like just being like really loose when I'm going to concerts. I think like going to concerts is like, and doing like the photography and everything is a little bit just like you're hanging out. You're there to just sort of have a good time. Like I said, it's just like really fun. Whereas when I go to like, when I'm making a film and I'm going on set, it's a lot more focused, and it's definitely like a little bit more like a professional mindset. And people said like me on set is like a very like blinders are on, and like if anything gets in the way, like that's it, like you're being written off. But
Right.
I don't know, but it is definitely like a different prep for both. It's definitely like a loose versus like a very much like a focused kind of energy, I think.
Yeah. So the last time we talked, you were working on a music video. So do you want to plug the band or talk about the music that inspired you or anything like that?
Yeah, it's our friend Narima, who I'm making the music video for. So yeah, we've been working together on this since January, when it's sort of a school project, but it's really become a little bit bigger than that. Yeah, we've spent like 3 days on set together, and it's been a lot of back and forth. Narima is just released their single "Bad Ending," which is the song that the music video is for, and it is a banger. It's like so good. So hopefully it'll come out in a month. The music video, that's the goal.
Awesome.
But yeah.
Are all the shoots done? Like, are you doing editing now, or like what part of the process are you in?
Just strictly in editing now. So we're hoping to be like picture locked, quote unquote, by the end of this coming week. But we've just had a little bit of a mix up with our editing. My editor's a little bit annoyed with me, but like, speaking of like comics and everything, Narima kind of came to me with the idea of superheroes and this idea of like betrayal that goes into their song. So we've decided to lean a little bit further into the comic book vibe.
Cool.
Which I'm hoping will be really fun. Be really cool.
Awesome. Yeah. Narima are always fun, man. I love playing with those guys. They have just such a great energy. And yeah, there's like an enthusiasm that you don't get once you get past 30 that they have. That's the only way I can describe it. They're just like, they're loving every second they're on stage, and it's just fun to watch.
For those of us that aren't familiar with the band, what would you say their style is, basically?
Yeah, how would you describe them, Imogen?
Very pop punk.
Okay, cool.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. But like the best, I think like Bad Ending is like the perfect pop punk kind of like anthem. Like it has the energy down, it like the lyrics are solid, it's a really good song.
Awesome.
Yeah. Yeah, they're great songwriters too. That's the thing, is like the lyrics are always very like poignant, I would say. It's not just about silly stuff. Like they're trying to deliver a message with their songs. Yeah. So if you're looking for a good show, check out Narima. They're top shelf.
They're playing on Friday.
Oh, nice. Where?
Yeah, at the Horseshoe.
Oh, no way. They're playing the Horseshoe. Amazing.
It should be really fun.
That's fantastic. Now they get to play twice. Now I'm a little jealous. Very cool. So you are in school for film. Is that correct?
Yes. Yeah. So I'm at Sheridan for Bachelor's of Film and Television. It's been we're almost done 3 years. It's been a long journey, but we're getting there.
Yeah. So, you know, I know a lot of people that love movies, not a lot of people that go to school to make them. So, what was it that convinced you that this was the right path for you?
Like I said, like I did a program on like illustrative and like graphic design work before I started in film. And I don't know, when I was doing that, I was really involved in it, and I really loved like painting and everything like that. But I kind of realized I was a little bit lonely doing it. And that I really like working with people and being involved with people. And like, especially like leading and communicating. And film kind of felt like the perfect balance there of being able to work and engage with people, as well as like making art together and collaborating. There's this really wonderful feeling I had like during the pre-production of the music video, where I kind of realized I didn't have any sort of like imposter syndrome about it, despite like the fact that I was really nervous about leading this big project. But because there were so many like creative and like strong individuals that were supporting me, it was like all of my faith was on them. None of it had to be on me as a director, but it was all on them as like this really strong force, this really strong team. And realizing that kind of like solidified that I was in like a good place to do this. Yeah.
Very cool. Very cool. So what do you intend to do once the education side is over? Do you want to do music videos, or is there like, do you have like a plan, or is this just like it's working so far and you're just going to carry it through?
A bit of both. I really do want to be like working in, especially like the Toronto music scene. I really want to, I love doing the concert photography. I want to keep that up. With filming and stuff, I really want to be making music videos. I've enjoyed this process, as well as like continuing to do more and like writing treatments for it and everything. It's so much fun. I hope eventually I'll get back into the world of like narratives and like dramas and everything. But it's definitely like not my main goal right out of school. I really want to just be like exploring style visually, and like supporting sort of the scene, like the Toronto music scene. I think there's a lot going on here, and I want to be part of it as much as I can.
Yeah, maybe you could offer kind of like an insight in how you see the music scene, because I've been in it for 10 years now, like as a musician on the stage. And so like I've kind of lost a little objectivity, you know? Like, when I go to a venue, I usually know at least the promoter, if not the owner, and like all these people are familiar to me, so it doesn't feel as much like a scene as much as it is like going to work, you know. But what do you see about the Toronto scene that is sort of? I definitely feel there's a vibrancy and there's like an energy there right now. But how would you describe like what you see?
Yeah, I think the Toronto music scene is like extremely welcoming, and I think it has like this huge positivity that maybe I don't think anyone lacks, but I love to see forward and love to see like brought forward in like every aspect of it. I love talking to people and realizing that everyone kind of knows each other in one way or another, like across genres, across every part of it. Um, there really isn't like Toronto has the iconic venues and everyone wants to play at those venues, and I think that that really helps give us like such a good like home base for where everyone can like gather. There really is like a vibrancy, and what I love is like how like I said, like everyone knows each other like across genres, but I also think that there are like such important little pockets that really do create sort of like a drive for people in different areas. I love keeping up with the hardcore scene. It's definitely not where like a lot of my energy and everything goes, but I love seeing what people are capable of and like the photographers there. It only helps inspire me further in like my like the work that I do in like different genres and a little bit like in the softer music and everything. Um, I think like the whole scene is just like I said, like it's a really good community and extremely vibrant as far as supporting the other artists. I haven't seen like one that really draws on photographers and really draws on like key illustrators as well for posters the same way, which is really awesome to observe.
Yeah, that's true. Doing the photography and stuff and the filming, I there wasn't a single time that someone was like, "Oh, another photographer, really?" It was always like, "Oh, you're filming too? Amazing. Okay, I'm going to be over here. Let me know if I'm in your way." Like everybody just wants to be a part of the whole process. It's so cool. How did you get into the music scene? Like, what was your first show, or like what inspired you to come out and that kind of thing?
So I wanted to do like concert photography for like ages, and then like 2019, I used to live in like Kitchener, which doesn't have like a huge music scene. Like, there's a couple venues, but nothing like wild going on. Um,
Mm,
and so I like moved to Oakville for school, and I started going to like a lot of like the sort of bands that I liked, sort of indie bands that I was listening to, the bigger ones. Um, and then I just kind of realized like I really want to be doing this. Like I really want to be like going to shows all the time, and I want to be capturing them to some extent. I liked filming. I already knew I liked doing that, so it was just a matter of okay, how do I combine these things?
Yep.
I got to, and then eventually I got a connection with Sun Junkies, and in 2019 I ended up recording their like album release show, and that was kind of
wow.
the first toe into that was the first time I shot anything. So it was a huge event to be a part of for first time. I think it was at the Hard Luck. Um, and then I was like, okay, I'm really gonna push this. I'm really gonna try to do it. I updated my gear, and then COVID started, and there was
Yep.
nothing going on. So then it wasn't until last year, like I think like that show at Bitch Fest where Ben and I met was one of the first shows that I'd actually shot as like a solo photographer. And I just sort of decided to message a band one day and said like, hey, can I come out and shoot the show? And they said, sure, why not? We'll put you on the list. And I just kind of decided to make that a goal, especially last summer and through the fall. Like that was kind of like my main focus for a little bit was just trying to get my foot in the door. Huge shout out to Ash of Toronto Music Venues for like letting me shoot one of those later shows because it gave me a lot of encouragement for her to reach out and be like, hey, do you want to do this again? As I was just there, like on one of my first, like I said, first ever shows. And then a couple of days later, she's like, hey, here's an opportunity for you. just starting. It was really awesome.
Yeah,
That's awesome.
Ash is she's an inspiration. Like she's man, I just love people like her who she doesn't have to do this. You know, she organizes all these shows and gets all these people together and like everybody, she's always busy. Always. And she's got her own personal life, but she's never like, oh man, I'm just tired today. She's always got a smile on her face. And even when she's tired, she's like, I'm a little tired, but we're here. It's going to be great.
Yep.
Like, people like that just blow my mind. Like how you're always that enthusiastic. It's just amazing.
And what's her full name for those that don't know her? What's her full name so we can promote
Ashley Kachia, I think it's pronounced.
Okay.
Yeah, she's pretty hard to miss once you see her. She's got bright red hair usually, and like a smile that's like a mile long.
That's great.
And she's usually right at the front of any Save Toronto Music Venue show. But she's the brains behind Bitch Fest.
Awesome. Yeah, and people that are welcoming you into the scene like that are just such a wonderful force for the entire thing.
Exactly.
So, what are some of the bands that like kind of got you into music in the first place?
As far as like shooting music and everything.
Sure, or just like music that you loved that got you to go to a show, and then you started thinking about filming shows.
Yeah, that's a great question. One of the first shows, or like those like indie bands that I'm like pretty into, like the tours that I was going to were like the Regrets were a big one. So they're like the best kind of like feminine pop punk energy, or at least that's what they used to be. And that was like such a good show, and it was just like a very there was just a really good like feminine energy in that room that I really, really enjoyed, and really like safe and welcoming energy. As well as just like the whole performance of their show. Like Lydia Knight has like some of the best stage performance ever, and they're definitely a band that it's like, okay, they're once again on the list of bands to like shoot. They're definitely like very like LA based. In Toronto, like getting to shoot Sun Junkies as one of the first shows. Like I'd actually been listening to their music and everything beforehand, so that was amazing. And like seeing the kind of energy that can be brought when there's like a huge crowd or like a very supportive community around a band, and seeing like they're just having so much fun on stage. Like that's a huge part of it, a huge part of the draw. Who else is there? Beach Bunny was a big one for me as well. All of these bands kind of have that sort of, they start some sort of pit, at least to an extent, and that's kind of part of the fun, is seeing the audience react, and it, like having your camera pointed one way at the stage is super fun, and then when you like turn around and you're like, oh my god, something's happening there, and you just like raise your camera up and you just start taking pictures as fast as you can, flash as much as you can. So good, so good. You never even know what you're going to come out with until you get home and you're looking through it.
Yeah, this year, just some of the photos I've been seeing of particularly Hamilton hardcore shows.
Definitely.
I think there's a place, the name off the top of my head, I can't remember. It's one of those Ask a Punk places where they don't tell you where it is, but it's like it's like an abandoned building of some kind that they turned into like a part skate park, part venue.
Yeah, the Kill Room, I think it is.
The Kill Room, that's what it is, the Kill Room. And holy shit, some of the photos I've seen of that place, I'm just like, I want to get in the pit after looking at the picture on my phone. Like, I have to like dial myself down when I'm at work, you know? I'm like, I want to put on some heavy hardcore, you know? Yeah. There's definitely some enthusiasm there. And like, yeah, hardcore is always that one of those styles of music where when I went to a couple hardcore shows back in high school, there was a couple people that would be standing in the back corner, and I'd be like, so who are you here to see? And they're like, oh, I hate the music. This is just amazing. Like,
it's a social experiment. Yeah.
Right.
This is for my anthropology class. I'm just fun.
I think of them as like tornado chasers, right? Where they like just to stand on the edge of the chaos and just watch it unfold, you know?
Yep.
Yeah.
Well,
so you have your own podcast. Sorry, go ahead.
Oh no, I was just going to say that's just such an energy. Like it just, you can feel it. Like not even just, you said on your phone, but if you're there, it's just like it sucks you in whether you want to or not. It's just such a feeling. And it's like 100%. Especially for hardcore shows like that, those like frat boy mosh pits that kind of became in fashion for a while. But yeah, if you've got a true pit that's such a good feeling, you know that anybody that falls down is going to get picked right back up, and everybody's going to love you in that room. So it's just such a positive force. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off before.
Oh, it's okay. So you have your own podcast, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's called This Must Be the Place. And it's about love songs. Yeah, I have like a guest on every week. We're on a bit of a hiatus right now. School's being a little bit crazy, but we're going to be doing a relaunch next week because it really only just started. And I have a guest on every week, and they choose 3 love songs. I choose 3 love songs. It's hosted on Spotify, and we just listen to them and we talk about them.
Oh, very cool. Yeah. So you broadcast them on the podcast?
Yeah. So Spotify has a new feature where you can work the song right into the podcast. While we're listening to it, and then we stop listening to it and we talk about it, like you're also listening to it. So we're all in kind of like the same mood when we're like
very cool
listening to the podcast. Yeah.
Well, in that spirit, do you want to name a couple love songs that speak to you and like tell us like, you know, what it is that you love about them?
Yeah.
And then maybe we can go around. We can each do a couple.
I would love that. That makes me so excited. So the title of this podcast is This Must Be the Place, after the Talking Heads song. It's definitely like what I think is one of like the greatest love songs of all time. I think it's so well written. It's so beautiful. It's really like just a genuine song. I think like the reason why I focused on love songs is because I think it's the closest thing that our generation has to like a sonnet. And I think like making a playlist for somebody is like the closest thing that we have to like this huge declaration of love. I think it brings art together in like such a like gentle like personal way without it just being like direct words or directly making something. So that's been a huge one. Like This Must Be the Place. It's just like it brings up such a soft energy of like peace and like hominess that I think is really important to share with somebody. I'm bringing up my playlist for This Must Be the Place right now.
Great.
As we speak, so I can take a look at some love songs and look.
I'm looking through my playlists right now. But so if you see me looking down, it's not because I'm being rude. I'm trying to figure something
I'm doing
out.
it in my head right now. To be honest with you. Yeah, I'm scrolling through the music in my head.
I have a playlist of sort of just sort of a stock of like my favorite love songs. So like when I'm trying to pick them for people, because I try to curate it to who I have on the podcast, based off of like what music I know that they like or what I think they'll talk about. And so I have like a playlist that I like refer back to with all my favorites on it. I have one that my mom showed me, Telephone Line by Electric Light Orchestra.
Yeah.
I think that's an absolutely gorgeous love song with a lot of like yearning in it and a lot of just like emotion in the voice. One of the other reasons why I love songs is everyone has like stories with them. I think they always bring up emotions and memories and like a place or a time and whether you want them to or not. This is really fun.
I agree.
Yeah.
John, you got any?
I've got a playlist, but it's all.
I totally put you on the spot, man.
I know.
I apologize.
Well, I did find one. So it was an old John Prine song. It was "She Is My Everything,"
great.
or "You Are My Everything." I can't remember which one, but
yeah.
I was making a song for Holly. My wife just passed away at the beginning of the year, so I've been making songs that remind me of her. So, and that was one of our favorites, and it reminds me of her. And I was also going to just make a point of, you were discussing how playlists are kind of that love letter kind of thing for older folks like Ben and myself. It used to be making mixtapes and ripped CDs. And so it's definitely been a love language for many, many years. And I remember making tapes back in the day was huge. Was like, I'd put little movie clip quotes in between for the people that you love, and it's such a love letter to somebody else, even if it's just your best friend or whatever. It just speaks to things that both of you have as memories that just ties you together. And I think it's just, music is one of my biggest love languages. So yeah, absolutely agree with that. So now, Ben, we'll put you on the spot.
Sure. Well, I'm going to go back to some of the music I was listening to last week. I mentioned Emily Haynes and the Soft Skeleton in the past. So Emily Haynes is the lead singer of Metric. But she also has her own. Yeah. She also has her own solo work. She's an amazing piano player. And she put out a couple albums back, I think, early 2000s. First one was called Knives Don't Have Your Back, and the second one was called What Is Free to a Good Home. And both of them I like. It's rare for me to find albums that I will listen to for like years/decades without missing a beat. And one of the songs on What Is Free to a Good Home is called Telethon, and it just reminds me of the complications of being in a relationship. It's about love, but it's also about like, we need to meet each other halfway. You need to understand where I'm coming from. And one of the lines, I'm definitely paraphrasing it, I'm going to butcher it, but I think it's when she says nothing's wrong, it doesn't mean don't try to fix it. I always try and think about that when I'm having a disagreement with my girlfriend. Like, just because things are okay doesn't mean you can't work on, something. You can learn from the experience at least, And another one is Teardrop by Massive Attack, which I know is not punk rock at all, but man, that song is just beautiful. And there's one line in there that it says, love is a doing word, which I always think about that. Like, love is an action. It's not just a feeling, And a lot of songs talk about the feelings and the maybe the longing or the loss, but love is really like it's an act. It's a thing you show, right? So yeah, those are mine.
I'm gonna add these to the playlist.
Oh, nice.
Definitely. Sorry.
No, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, I don't know. I just think love songs are such a good little peek into what a person is. I think like the podcast kind of goes back to what you were saying about like concert photography and the way that it's a little bit more of like a documentation. I don't know. Like when I was like releasing it, I just kind of realized it was like this documentary on like my friends and where we are right now and who we are. And I don't know. I hope it can grow into a little bit of a thing to reflect on, like, years down the line, we're going to be like, wow, like that song was really important to me, or like, oh, like, I know why that song was important to me. Yeah.
Right.
I'm super looking forward to that.
But songs are such a snapshot at exactly. It might be 2 years that you really, really love that song, but it's a snapshot of that 2 years maybe, and it shows exactly where your head was at. And it's sometimes that's beautiful to see exactly what kind of music you were listening to and what really mattered at the time. Because you go back, and if I dug out some of those mixtapes I made 20 years ago, I'm sure it would be very different than what I'm thinking right now. So it's wonderful.
Oh, definitely.
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah. When I think about some of the mixtapes I made for people, or the ones that were given to me as well, like, oh, that was my favorite thing, was when people would make them for me, because I've always been the kind of person who, like, I'm always looking for new music. And so when you have that, this is what I've learned, is like, when you have that approach to music, all the people around you, when they find new music, you're the first person they want to tell, because you're the one who's going to be into it. And so I would get these mixtapes from friends, or girls that I was dating, when they found out I was really into music and we would talk about music for a while, if they were into it too, they'd make me a mixtape. And I still have a handful of them. And like, it's kind of awkward when I'm hanging out with my girlfriend and like I pull one out and it's got a big heart on it. And she's like, "Who's that from?" And I'm like, "No, it's good music. That's all. It's just good music."
Yeah.
But yeah, it was just it's definitely a snapshot. I think about it in terms of recording as well. So like when I listen to music that I recorded, 5 or 6 years ago, um, I'm far more patient with myself than I used to be in the past. I used to hate all my music. But now when I listen back, I realize like there are moments where I'll hear something I'm doing. I'm like, oh yeah, I was listening to Tool a lot then, and I can tell that like the Danny Carey Tom fill was definitely in my mind, or oh yeah, that was when I was heavy into Led Zeppelin. You can hear the John Bonham groove in the background and that kind of stuff. Um, yeah, I imagine filmmaking has a similar thing where like you find an aesthetic and you kind of ride it for a little while, and then you kind of get whatever you need to out of it and evolve past it to some degree.
Yeah, 100%. I think like with filmmaking, because it's such a long sort of almost tedious process, where it's like there's so many moving parts and there's so much to consider and like the pre-production aspect. You can really get a lot of what you want to say out in like one piece. Which is why I think it's so easy for people to like shift feelings and like it's like almost hard to become a director that has such a like complete voice in what you say, because there's so much that can be said in one thing.
Right.
It's definitely like, yeah, like it's definitely a very long term kind of process, and like screenplays and scripts can take like years and years to write, which like anything can, of course. But then you would add on to like another year of like sort of like developing like the visual style of it, and then you add on even more time to develop like the editing style of it. It really can just morph. Every section can morph into different like pieces of one person, I think. And because of that, there's so much that can be gotten out in one piece, which is interesting.
So how do you is this like a conscious process, or is this something that kind of like reveals itself to you while you're working on it?
Definitely a bit of a reveal. Yeah, like um, last year I made a documentary on it was sort of about like gender and how sort of abstract the concept of gender is. And it kind of it started off as a very like, okay, we're gonna do these interviews, this is gonna be the storyline, and like this is the point that we're gonna try and make. And then later on in the editing process, I think maybe through some like personal reflection with it, it kind of became a bit of like an abstract art piece rather than being like a very linear storyline. Um, for better or for worse, I've yet to know. But I think that's where it ended up going. And the sound person had quite a hard time realizing that they suddenly had to make like a whole soundscape for this video that was not expected to have that. But they had a lot of
Right.
fun with it. Yeah.
So how did it end up kind of shifting? Was it like, did you discover this as you were filming, or was it after the filming was done and you were cutting it together that you were like, hold on a second?
It was definitely after. Like we had filmed everything. I had given it to the editor. I was going through with documentaries. A lot of like the writing process happens after you do all the interviews and everything. Because you kind of have to like piece together based off of just what you have. Kind of like putting a puzzle together just off of what you were given. And so I sat down with my editor and we've been like working away on like this very linear story for like 2 weeks, and we were like, you know what, I think it's moving. And then I woke up one day and I was like, this doesn't work anymore. Like we gotta change this. And I was like, I got into her car. I remember getting into her car and I was like, Rachel, you're gonna hate me. And she was like, why? And I'm like, we're changing the whole film. And she's like, I do kind of hate you, but also I like the idea, so we're gonna do it. So it's nice to like have that support with like when you make a big change and you know it's for the best. It feels good, but it's also like definitely need people to have your back in order to do that. People who are doing the work for you. Yeah.
Yeah, it seems like I've never been more than just I made one music video in my life, and it was in one room, and it was kind of a singular vision. And so we just kind of did what we were told for the most part. But it appears like filmmaking is a lot like being in a band,
Yeah.
where you have these other members that are involved in the process, and they're bringing their own aesthetic to it. And if you come at it from an approach of like, this is the vision and you need to kind of mold yourself to the vision, you'll get a particular type of person that will resonate with that. But it seems far more organic than that, from the outside at least. Maybe I'm wrong, but it seems like when you're making, like when people are filming, you kind of have to trust their eyes when they're holding the camera to see what they want to see, and then try and craft that into the narrative. Is that right?
Yeah, a little bit. Like you're definitely like you're putting a lot of trust into the people that you're working with for sure. Like I'm no like, and it's not like you couldn't do it all yourself, I think is also part of it.
Sure.
Like it's not like you couldn't you know, put a camera with a mic on it and try and set it up and then also direct at the same time while you're doing the video. It's not impossible, but I think that that's one of the best parts about filmmaking is bringing in like these different voices. It really is like hugely collaborative and hugely like sort of a lot of moving pieces. And I think a lot of like being a director is like trying to figure out, okay, who has that sort of energy or vibe that they already have in their work that will also help to serve me, as well as who will add to it, like who has something to bring of like their own craft that will add some interest to it. So I can definitely see a similarity with like a band there. Like, I mean, I never really thought about it that way, but that's really cool.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So the director's role, like, how would you describe it? Is it like, are you managing personalities? Are you ensuring that everything follows the script? Is it a little bit of both? Do you have to delegate, or do you have to like control? Like how much of each?
I think it kind of depends. I think for me, I find it's a lot of delegation. I'm just like I want to be able to be like I want to find people who will serve sort of the purpose of what I'm trying to create and be able to like hand off certain things to them. Some roles that's never ever gonna work, but my good friend Laura, she did the styling for Narima's music video, and I just said, "Can you design like the characters? Here's what the band member looked like." She went through their Instagram and she like looked at like what kind of outfits they usually wear and everything, and she just came back and she had designed these like full outfits for them and then collected pieces accordingly. But she like it was very much like I let her have her freedom with it, and I think that that really helped like both of us kind of figure out a voice there. It's a little bit interesting in like the early stages of this where like we have such young filmmakers doing this, like when you're in school and everything, because people are still trying to figure themselves out as well. And like I'm definitely still learning how I want to do this, and everyone's kind of like cautiously stepping, but also really wants to just throw themselves into it. So it's definitely like a balance there of all of it. Directing is like a lot of just like creativity though, for sure. It's like a lot of just I don't even know if I'm the creative person or if I'm just finding creative people sometimes. But I definitely do think like figuring out sort of, I hate to use this word again, but figuring out sort of like the vibe or like the aesthetic or the atmosphere of a piece is a huge part of it, for sure.
Very cool. Do you have any questions, John?
Oh no, I was just soaking it all in. I just thought it was interesting that, I think being, somebody that's still finding their voice and everything like that, and having, the other end of it, both of you meeting halfway, you're not as rigid in your process yet either. So I think that's probably welcoming to a lot of people, is they probably, since you're both kind of finding your voice, it's like it's nice to meet halfway. You don't have a director coming in with preconceived notions and saying you have to do it this way, and this way. So that's probably a very it's probably eases a lot of people's minds to be able to work with somebody that's willing to like shift their creative process to meet them. So I think that's probably to your benefit, and I just thought that was great. So
yeah, for sure. Yeah, openness is part of the creative process, and like it's very rare that I find that the art I enjoy comes from a really heavily kind of dictated place. You know, very often I find that, like, especially when I'm watching the show, like a music show or even a television show, I feel like maybe it's just my ego convincing myself of this, but I always feel like I can tell the authenticity of the people involved, whether it's actors, whether they're embodying the character in a truthful way, or whether it's musicians on a stage, and like you can, that's something that you can't deny when the dynamic on the stage, people moving around, and like, you know, the looks they give each other, and like the way that, like, oh, the guitar solo is starting, the bass player walks over and kind of like plays in front of him, and
Yep.
like it's a bit of a conversation, you know, like that kind of stuff shows the openness of the artists involved, and like that it's a collaborative process, that it's happening, you know, everybody has their own, uh, you know, it's like many heads on the body kind of thing, you know.
Yeah.
100%.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think like, yeah, and I hate to like beat a dead horse, but like that's the fun of it, is to like bring together all of these pieces and all these moving pieces. And at the same time, like that authenticity, it's like, I think that that's, it isn't something that I'd considered before, but I think that's a lot of the reason why I like certain media is like I said, like Edgar Wright, it feels like there's a genuine passion for the music and everything that's involved in it. And like I always say, like I don't like comedies, like I hate watching comedies. But one of my favorite shows is Parks and Rec, but it feels like a show that has so much love in it and so
Yes.
much genuine like effort into it.
Yeah, totally. And that's a show in particular where it feels like a lot of the funny is found in the filming, like that there's a lot of improv involved, and so it was just like, put these three people in a room, they're talking about X, go, let's see what happens, you know.
Exactly.
And like a lot of the best jokes come out of that kind of thing. I just started going on a deep dive of It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia, because now they have a podcast and they talk about the show, and like they'll break down each episode with the three creators, and then they'll have guests on, like they'll have Danny DeVito or Caitlin Olsen or various other actors that were involved in the show, and they'll have them on for a show, for an episode that's like kind of about, like kind of features their character, and then they'll talk about the creation process, and a lot of it is like they write and then they get to filming, and then a lot of the ideas they have get fleshed out mid filming, where they'll just kind of shoot the same thing 4 times, and you know, like one of the characters will have a joke and they're like, oh yeah, we got to do that, and then someone will riff off of that, they're like, okay, let's film it, let's shoot this one more time and have everybody, you know what I mean, like, and then people start breaking, and that kind of adds to the fun of it. And yeah.
Definitely.
Do you find it's difficult to kind of manage all that stuff, or do you have like kind of a natural affinity for it?
I gotta say, like directing, or at least like on like the size of sets that we're doing, it's kind of my liberty, I suppose, to get to go with those things. I think that those things, like I really like embracing them, and I think that they're really fun. I'm super down to do a shot again if something is working. Like working with Narima, like they have such a fun stage presence, and that was one of the reasons why I wanted to work with them, because I was like, they bring so much energy. And so we ended up like doing like an extra day than we were supposed to of shooting, and like Lexi was performing, their lead singer, frontman of the band. She's performing, and I was like, okay, let's do it again from this angle. Let's do it again from this angle. The other side of this is I have like there's an first assistant director, who is in charge of the timing and everything. And so they were sitting there going, oh, we could wrap today 3 hours early. And then they started to see, oh, shots just kept on getting added and added and added and added. And they're like, okay, now I get why we're wrapping at 3 a.m. instead of 12. Like,
Right.
Yeah. And so I really like playing with that, but definitely having somebody to keep you on track is important a little bit. And so it's like finding that balance, unfortunately, as an industry of like, okay, people's time and then like, you know, making the craft and making the art. I don't know. I think it's really fun to play off of what, like you said, like the authenticity, like the natural moments that come up. Those are the important parts.
Yeah. Very cool. So you don't like comedies?
Yeah, I don't know. I say that like broadly.
I mean, I'm not putting you on blast. I'm just curious. It's very rare for me to encounter someone in film who hates an entire genre of film.
I wouldn't say I hate comedies. It's just like I hate people trying to be funny. I hate people.
Yeah,
You know what I mean? Yeah.
I do. Yeah, you know what? I don't want to be too critical, but I was playing a show on Friday, and this is kind of a similar thing where this kind of drives me up the wall. I try and be polite and respectful about it. I think I do a pretty good job of being polite and respectful about it, but it kind of grinds my gears when it's happening, where someone will start playing music that they like. In this case, it was like the venue owner, and then they start going, "Oh yeah, this song, this drummer, man, he was so like I just love this beat," and they just start talking about drums, like trying to. There's a difference between talking about drums and trying to tell me about drums. You know what I mean? And like that's the difference for me between being funny and trying to be funny, where it's like, are you going for the joke or you just find something funny? You know? And like a lot of times I find you can tell if someone's ego is involved in the process depending on how they give the information. So yeah, and this particular person, it was the funniest thing. I asked him like, do you play any instruments? He's like, yeah, I used to play drums, and I was like, oh, cool. And he's like, do you play? And I was like, yeah, I play drums. He's like, oh, okay. And I was like, this is like my 5th show here. Like, I've literally set up the drums and asked you to sound check me before. What are we talking about here, man? So it was like this kind of moment of like, are you negging me right now? Like, what is happening?
You can, like,
are we flirting?
It's like
To be fair, you don't know how many drugs he did right before that conversation, so you need to, watch yourself.
Hey man, if you knew the guy, you would not realize how accurate that statement is.
So your face might have looked completely different all 5 times to him. You don't know.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. Yeah. He might have thought he was talking to like a purple baboon at one point or something.
See? So there you go. Benefit of the doubt. You got it.
That's fair. That's fair. You're right. I was the jerk. You're right. My bad.
Obviously.
So could you give me a couple comedy movies that you think are great so that we have kind of like a reference?
Oh my goodness. Okay. Oh my god, I don't even know where to start. Shrek 2. Shrek 2 is a great comedy, I think. Okay. I know Shrek is a little bit of a meme. I know everyone's always making fun of it, but
memes are memes because they're amazing.
Exactly. Right? And Shrek 2 has like such good there's just like some really good like natural moments there, I think. And like even though it's an anime film, it's hard to tell, but it's really just well delivered and well done. Ooh, I don't know about live action comedies. Like I said, I don't watch very many for an obvious reason. The obvious reason I'm not liking comedies.
Fair enough.
But I'm really into. I don't know if you count Ferris Bueller's Day Off as a John Hughes film.
Absolutely.
Hell yeah.
But definitely one of my favorites. Definitely one of the big inspirations in my filmmaking as well.
Cool.
So
what is it about Ferris Bueller that separates it from the trash pile, so to speak?
I think there's like a it's such a touchiness to it. I think it's one of those films that, like, going back full circle, like it's one of those films that has like balanced sort of the heartfelt feelings as well as this really fun energy to it, that makes it both funny and also really kind of like touching. Like it kind of pulls on your heartstrings just a little bit. Not too much in Ferris Bueller, but like just enough to like get you a little bit when you're like really paying attention to the characters. I don't know. I think an overlooked part of Ferris Bueller's Day Off is like Ferris and what's her name, Simone, like his girlfriend's relationship. I think it's so endearing. It's so sweet.
Yeah, I actually kind of I tried to approach my high school life like, what would Ferris Bueller do, to a certain degree. The reason being that like what I got from that movie was that Ferris his friend, like his best friend who he hangs out with throughout the entire film, is kind of a bit of an outcast, even though he's like got a pretty decent life on paper. He kind of struggles, and you can tell that he has some social difficulties. And Ferris is like this, gregarious and charismatic guy, and like, the entire film is him just being himself, and everybody going, "Look at that dude," like. And so I kind of thought about it like, if you can be the person that everyone likes, you should also be the person who likes everyone. And so I kind of tried to approach high school through the Ferris Bueller lens, where it was like, I want to find the people who have a little bit of difficulty hanging out and bring them into the circle, and let's all be friends together. And like, that comfort, like, that scene when he's in the parade where he just kind of just strolls through and like, okay, here we are. I like that comfort with just being wherever you are and just owning the moment. I love that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I definitely think like just that film has this really good sense of like community and like happiness, and like the fact that there's all like all the little bits about even if they're just for comedic reason of like the rumors passing through the school. It's also just this idea of like everyone like rallying together. And I think, I don't know, maybe I'm overanalyzing Ferris Bueller's Day Off too much, but I think it's such a touching film. I think it's really quite gorgeous.
Oh, it absolutely is. And I think going again full circle is like it did have the big musical numbers too. So I think that also ties it all together as well. It has everything you're looking for in a movie. So
yeah, it really does. Yeah, there's a reason why those movies, like you said, Shrek 2 is a meme. Well, Ferris Bueller's a meme too, but like these things were memes before memes were a thing. That's got to count for something, like, it's. Shakespeare's a meme. It's because it's amazing, like they were able to do something that other people hadn't done yet. That deserves some attention. So let's just end on a positive note, since we're talking about positivity. So what do you, Desert Island, you have $1 million, you can do whatever you want. What is the film you make?
Ooh. Honestly, I would love to make a very much a coming of age film, with a super like clean and like distinct sort of color palette to it. That is about, I don't know, I have like this story floating around in the back of my mind that I really want to make into a graphic novel. I'm not sure how well it would transform into film, but sort of based in sort of the same idea, or maybe the same world, about a guy who tries to start a band. And that's really what it's about. And it's about these like very much like young people, like 18-year-olds who are still trying to really find themselves in that age, like that little bit past when the most coming of age stories are, when like you're in high school and everything. That little bit past that kind of gets like avoided a little bit.
The quarter life crisis.
Yeah, exactly, like the 18 to 24-year-old range. That like gets ignored, and exploring sort of people trying to figure out who they are, and especially like who your friends are in that time. I think that that's a theme that, I don't know, I am 24 years old, so that might be why it's stuck around for so long. It's an idea I've been thinking about for a while. But I would love to explore, just sort of exploring the music scene in a fictional way. How far can we push it as well? How far can we push the music scene as well as like the emotions of young people?
And that's obviously right up our alley. So if we would read the hell out of that book. If it was a graphic novel, we would watch it. If it was a movie, and if you need help in any way that we can offer it, we would be happy to help, because
1,000%.
That is absolutely the kind of like crossover between music and comics that we love. So
Definitely. I would love to. Sorry, I was gonna say I'd love to like share and explore more of it with you guys, because it's kind of been, the characters are all kind of floating. It kind of feels like there's characters without much purpose right now, but they're finding it. They're figuring it out.
Cool.
Well, character is kind of my jam. I'm really good at the lore kind of thing, like delving into history and figuring out like what motivates and creating sort of a path behind the person you meet on page one. I'm quite good at that. And John edits comics for a living, so I'm sure he could help with a fair amount if you're looking to collaborate in a different dimension.
But we're not putting you on the spot. You don't need to hire
Nope,
us.
not at all. No pressure. You do it with whoever you want to do it, and we will promote the hell out of it at minimum.
It's been like a solo project that I just kind of randomly drop into little conversations. So I mean, I think a little bit of outside force would be greatly appreciated.
Yep. I think we could all use that. A little collaborative push once in a while helps all of us.
Hell yeah.
So.
That's what this podcast is for. I think it keeps us, John and Eric and I, it keeps us on our toes and keeps us like motivated to keep thinking about music and thinking about the scene and connecting with people so that we can bring them onto the podcast and explore new ideas and stuff. Like, it definitely helps me in every other dimension of my life because it's an hour well spent every week or 2 weeks, and stimulates new thoughts and new ideas, and then I take that into the world, and yeah, it's a feedback loop. A good one. Yeah. Well, thanks for having taken the time with us, Imogen. You're a fantastic person, as I told you the first time we met.
Thank you. And, I really appreciate it. It's been awesome.
Yeah.
Really fun time.
Yeah. And I look forward to watching your podcast when it relaunches. Can you say the name for it one more time?
Yeah, it's This Must Be the Place. It's on Spotify, hosted by Imogen Lister. So
okay.
There.
And awesome. Eric's really good about, we have no idea what we're doing tech-wise, but Eric will list probably your podcast and everything else on the show page for us too.
Yeah.
So
yeah, no, we're terrible at this. So this is like we peaked.
We struggled our way through
an hour.
So.
Exactly. Well, thank you for being a guest, and I'm sure I'll see you at another show in the near future.
Definitely. Thank you guys so much.
Thank you.
Take it
All
easy.
right. Thanks for watching, everybody, and we'll see you next week. Peace.
Bye.
All right. I gotta figure this stupid thing out. All right. Hold on a second.
Here I did it. I hit